reports to the committee that makes final recommendations. We are meeting as a result of a referral as ATC by the Speaker for this committee to consider a letter from the President with regard to the appointment process. On the names to be looked at. And I think in trying to get the committee just to trace where we get from, where we are coming from, we are going to be then asking for all the assistance that we can be given, hence there's also legal and so on. So I just thought it's important to clarify that it's a subcommittee meeting, which will then be followed by a committee meeting. With the quorum having been confirmed, we'll then start with the formalities of the meeting so as to have a smooth meeting. Firstly, just to remind ourselves that this being a subcommittee of a committee of the National Assembly, the same rules would apply to the functioning of this subcommittee. One being that on this platform, all participants, that includes members and those that may be on the platform, not as members, you are advised to keep your mic switched and your mic muted and your video camera switched off until you are recognized by the chairperson. In that case, you will then proceed to unmute, open your video camera, and proceed to speak. In a situation where you experience connectivity challenges, you would advise the chairperson and make the request to keep your video camera off so as to maximize your bandwidth and be able to proceed to speak. From time to time, there'll be those who lose connectivity and want to reconnect back to the meeting. Just ensure at all times as you reconnect that your video camera is switched off, as well as your mic is muted. This is so because mics are also sensitive and pick up background sounds that may distract the speaker that may be on the platform at the time. Whilst point of orders are allowed in terms of the rules of this platform, I advise that you have to raise your hand first on the gadget. And of course, the committee support staff will also assist the chairperson in identifying such hands in case the chair will see. And only at the time that the chair has recognized you to raise the point of order that you'll proceed to unmute your mic and the video camera and speak accordingly. And the chairperson would rule on the point of order in terms of the rules. With that having been said, honorable members, we're also further advised that we do not raise unnecessary point of orders by point of collapsing the meeting on this platform. If we can then proceed from that, having clarified the rules, I will then ask if there are apologies or applications for leave of absence that have been received. Support.
Good evening, Chairperson. No apologies on my side, Chair.
No apologies. Are there any apologies from members that may have not come to the attention of the committee support? If none, I will then proceed by asking committee support to flag the agenda. That is the agenda. So we look at this referral, and for that reason, I would ask that at this point you formally share the actual ATC referral.
I'll be with you now, Chair. 1 second. Chairperson.
Yes, go to the adjournment.
Excuse me, Chair, can you just repeat?
Yes, President's request for mention on the names, but as I'm saying, go to the actual letter because it helps to bring context. So unless it's on my side, I just don't see anything.
There's nothing, Chair.
Apologies, Chairperson. Let me just try again. Can you see it now, Chair? Chairperson.
I can see it now.
We can see it, Hajira.
Thank you. Chairperson, can you hear us?
We can't hear you, Chair. Perhaps unmute. Is he still on, Hajira?
I'll check now, Ms. Barnett.
No, I am on, but we're going to the letter on a point by point. The reason I'm going slow is also for the legal people, as I would ask them to also familiarize in case the one sent may have not gone through it. The first is the 3rd February. Okay. I'm just trying to be sure that we are on the same letter. That's in the ATC. Please go to the letter that's in the ATC. That's the referral.
Apologies, members. I'll just check for that letter. Thank you. Mr. Madupi,
If you fly to the ATC, if you fly to the ATC, you just go down. You'll then be able to see the letter that is the referral. The other letters are gonna come as it relates to context.
Chairperson.
That's the one. That is the letter of referral, honorable members. And we are expected to engage the points made. And I'm sure we can be able to get back there. But I want us to start from the letters so referred to, so as to give proper context. Honorable Kolabanat, are you raising a point of order or not?
Chair, apologies. I'm wondering why there's confusion. I mean, we voted on 12 members in the House in ranked order. That was unanimously passed by the National Assembly. We did rank 3 alternates should one of those people at some stage pull out, so we didn't have to redo the process.
Honorable Kolabanat.
I'm just wondering if you could explain what exactly the issue is.
Honorable Kolabanat, that's why I asked you, is it an order that you are raising on the point I have made on how we need to proceed forward, the context, so that we understand if you say 2 letters from the speaker, what does that mean? If you say the letter from the chairperson says this, what does that mean? Whether it's 12 or 15 names, that's very helpful, so that by the time you make inputs, you can then be able to make that input having traced the journey. And this is where I want to go, because I want the legal people, when they assist the process, can do that.
Chair, perhaps we could we perhaps have a look at your letter to the speaker, I beg your pardon, to the minister.
As I say, I will go through the letters. Right. The first that we need to understand, so I'm switching off my video camera. As you can see, it's dark. Acacia Park has been visited. I hope I'll still stay online. So let me maximize the time I have. The first point is we need to trace the resolution of the committee so that we don't give different interpretations. The resolution of the committee, which is now the resolution adopted by the National Assembly, is communicated by the Speaker, the letter of the 20th of December, 2023. And I would want that letter, just to remind ourselves of the actual resolution, so that we do not give different interpretations. Can you committee support? Can you just raise that so that when it's about 2 letters, it's understood? I'm trying to help those that were not part of the training. The letter of the Speaker to the President, informing the President on the resolution of the House. With support?
Yes, Chairperson. You want the letter of the 25th of January, Chair?
No, the 20th of December, it's a letter from the Speaker to the President, informing the President of the resolution adopted by the House.
I don't have that. Dr. Madupi, do you have that letter?
It's part of the first email, if I may, Chair. The first email that I sent to you, Hajira, it's one of the 5. It's signed 20th by the Speaker. You know, it's handwritten.
Okay, In the meantime, whilst you do that, let me ask, there's a hand from the Advocate Jenkins.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, honourable members and colleagues. I would like to assist, Chairperson. I have these documents ready. I have that letter here. I would love to just, if I can screen share or something, if we can get it going, then we can probably use the time economically and efficiently, as you indicated earlier, Chairperson. I just want to assist, please.
That's then not a point of order, but to assist. Put the letter because it's the same letter. That's what.
Chair, because I have it here. I have the letter of the speaker to the president.
Yes. Ajira, assist with the Sharon Raj.
I've done that, Chair.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. I'll share it now. Chair, it's a PDF and I'm not getting my PDF, so I need to wipe over. Here we go, Chair. Okay, this is the letter of the president, of the speaker to the president. Dated 20 December. And these are the names that were recommended. And Chairperson, if I may, these are the reserve pool members, which is the issue that the president is concerned about. So I'll stop there unless Chair wants me to indicate further what I think the question is around the letter of the president now to the speaker, Chair. I'm going to just mute myself in the meantime.
Honorable members, I think for me, as I said, I'm trying to get the chain. You can take notes, Advocate Jenkins. I think at the time, as for legal, it's important to have the full picture. This is the resolution of the House as communicated to the President. And I want us to understand the reading. The reading says 12 candidates to fill the vacancies. And the Assembly further recommended the following 3 additional names to serve as a reserve pool to cater for any eventuality, given the period it has taken to complete the process. And right, and these are the names. So this is what the Speaker wrote, which those who were in the committee would understand it's as resolved by the committee. So the committee did make a recommendation that had a reserve pool of names. So there are 15 names with the 12 and the 3. So we'll get to this point raised then the letter. So this is the first letter. Then with this letter, then there is a letter that then asks questions to the Speaker about this resolution. So you'll get to the letter of, I think it's Jan.
Chair, may I ask a question, please?
The Minister, yes.
Looking at the phrase that the speaker used on that letter, I'd like to know from the advocate if using that phrase, any eventuality, is perhaps what gave the problem. Because we saw it as simply filling in if a person was unable, one of the 12 was unable to take up their position. but I don't know quite what any eventuality could be interpreted as. I'm interested in what the advocate has to say about that. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Kolabana, you can keep that. Note the question. We have agreed on drawing the journey because you asked for the letters. So that's what we are doing. Allow that the meeting be guided as such so that when you ask questions, they are looking at the total picture. Right. So we have these names. Then remember these names, we arrived at them having had a process, shortlisting, all that public participation. And there were those candidates that were flagged, and the committee had to ask for legal advice on those, especially related to conflict of interest and so on, as well as other candidates. So we dealt with that part. So to get to that resolution, we would have dealt with a number of those issues long before we made recommendations. Even at the time of making that recommendation, if members would recall, we still had an organization that was still questioning some of the names, even though there was a response to those. So we understood that they still reserve the right to raise it elsewhere, but yeah, we'll continue in that scope. Okay, now, so that's what the speaker communicates. And then there is a letter, which letter was also to the speaker. So I'm referring to this so that you understand the letter of the chairperson so referred to there, because it is as a result of all these letters that I'm referring to. So then there's a letter of the minister, I think it's 25, to the speaker. Can you flag that? Can we flag that? You see, the letter is not to the chair, but to the speaker, but it's brought to the chair as part of the correspondence that the speaker has been interacting with the executive on. Let's go down, scroll.
Chair, you're being fast. Can you go back a
Yes.
little bit?
Chair, I don't recall seeing this letter before the committee at all. Am I mistaken?
As you can see, Honorable Kolabanat, I'm indicating to you that the letter is written to the Speaker of the National Assembly. So I'm putting it here so that you understand the context, including how the chair, when asked to respond, has responded in clarifying the process the committee has undergone. So please take note of the matters raised so that you understand the response. Is it too fast, Honorable Mlalo?
Chairperson. Chair.
Is that Honorable Pambo?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just for the easy running of the meeting, but also so that we are able to engage, much more meaningfully, that this letter be sent to us, either in our groups or in our emails, as we are in the committee right now, so that we can properly read it. Because now we are really at your mercy and we're struggling to read and follow through properly. And then we can be able to meaningfully engage on these letters. Thanks, Chair.
Now, the sharing could happen, Honorable Pambo, but as I said, we have agreed on a path to take. It can be sent whilst we go through, so that when you want to make reference, it is at least with ease on your side. But that was the letter. Which letter actually the speaker would have responded to, and an opinion thereof. Then the letter of the president that was flighted before. I think that's the letter of the third. Just like the other letter.
Chair, if you would just
send the letters.
Could you just confirm? Could you just confirm for me, Chair, that letter from the minister to the speaker was on the 25th of January? Am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. We then have the letter from the president responding to the letter of the 20th. And making the reference to the communications minister's letter. Then the concerns come, so I begin to answer a question, Honorable Kolobane. The concerns, 6.1. Then talk to the 3 additional names. And for the legal status of those. And therefore need a response in this regard. Six point 6.3. So that one relates to the vetting, and whether these names were vetted. And also, when was the matter brought to the committee? Right. So that's the letter. So now I've looked at two letters from the president, and I'm saying the president on the basis that the appointing authority is the president making the communication with the speaker. Then let's get the letter of response from the speaker to this part. You can see from the letter of the speaker on section A refers to that reserve pool. And the speaker clarifies that as you can see, that advice for the president to ignore the three names as she's advised that the Broadcasting Act does not authorize the nomination of a reserve pool. So you can understand that that's where then the problems also start, whether we're supposed to put a reserve pool or not, and the House result on that. But on advice, that's then the response. So you have two matters now, that of the House as well as what the speaker would have responded, relying on a legal advice given as she was to get responses to what the president has raised. So those two paragraphs are dedicated to that, to the reserve pool. Go down.
Not too far, Chair. Can we go down again? Just on the, yes. Just no. No, there. I am informed that all candidates were still reading.
Yes. All candidates, including those in the reserve pool, were security vetted. But as indicated above, those three names no longer be considered in making appointments to the board. Then the matter and objections. Can scroll. There is it. Go down. Scroll down. Okay, so that would be the letter of the speaker. And on receipt of a letter from the Secretary of Parliament, sending all these correspondences that I have outlined, and I need to make a response. Then speak to the response, show the response of the chair. A letter from the chairperson to the speaker, because I could only write to the speaker, not the president.
get the letter now, Chair. Are you able to see it, Chair? Chairperson.
Yes, we can see it.
No. Can, oh, I'm muted. I thought I could be heard. Paragraph 127. It's more to indicate what we got from legal. And continue. Scrolling. And continue. So they are clarifying. These are the ones that the committee received in its process in terms of concerns list. In response to the letter of the president, taking it on the point by point on the understanding of what the Act says and why the committee put the reserve pool. And the understanding, at least from the point of the chair, that any eventuality is not limited just to non-availability. There may be people who may have been vetted, qualified before, but at the time of appointment, anything could have happened. And the other stakeholders who may raise matters we may not be aware of, even though there will be no letter flighted here because we didn't get other concerns that have been raised post the process. But I'm privy to the fact that even a member of this committee further raised concern once picking up information on one candidate post our processes and the House. All those get to be considered at another level. But for our purpose, that's where things are. But of course, justify again the financial prudence of the things we're looking at and the stability instead of going through a new process. Of course, because it's said not to be in the act, yes, it may have brought that because it's not explicitly articulated under the prescript, but it's not been the intention. So we're talking to 15 names, and all the 15 were vetted, and there were no security issues that were raised. And the reports available upon request. I think that's the point. Because we ensured that people are vetted before we could proceed to the next step. As you'd see on 6.3, it's the repeat again on the our process, that these were the names that there were concerns and we dealt with. So only 2 in the 4 would have been shortlisted and recommended to the presidents. And of course, again, referring to the legal opinion. A response again to paragraph 7 on the letter, which talks to the part again, the maximum number, that there is no meeting that score, and that in the current law there may be inadequacies, but those maybe things we'll look at in the amendment. Can move. Scroll. And of course, for everything we do, we always touch base, get the legal considerations on whether indeed there is a provision that limits the National Assembly only to 12. And that's why Advocate Jenkins would have been consulted on the 2nd of March. Right, and I'm sure right up in the letter you would have seen that the receival of all that correspondence, the letter sent to me was on the 28th. You'll remember that day was a committee and the House. So I received after the House, as I reported in the previous portfolio committee. That's 1743 time that I received. So consulted, and of course, noting also the difference between a CASA, which clarifies the number that's limited per vacancy, and so on, and that in this case, it's explicit to the president to appoint 12. Of course, a need to respond to this process that has taken long from the 13th of June, just to indicate receival, when was the date set, and the process we followed to do recruitment wise to way. Having recess period as a way of showing that we're taking the matter seriously. But we had no control of the state organs, who also played a role from the vetting side. Right. So the letter of the Speaker to the President, that's the one that was undated. Again, acknowledging that, and I expressed the view there from the chair in particular, that the Speaker wrote this on the strength of legal advice. that does not cater for the reserve pool of names, but only 12 names. Bring the point though that that's then the contradiction also in that the House adopted a resolution that had the 3 names, and therefore that advice has an effect of altering the resolution of the House, and only the House can change that resolution. So that's the point to bring there. And having answered these questions, then would then wait for the President for further referral, which will be through the Speaker, and that then the committee then can then process such a referral. And the Speaker wrote back to the President attaching this letter of the Chair as further details that the Speaker would have been able to get out of the process. And therefore, the referral we have, which then says that not all the questions would have been answered, and that there were 2 letters, and indeed we may need to decide on what do we really recommend, understanding that the reserve pool issue is a problem. So it's on whether we are to 12 or what to do 15. Right now, I've put this as a way of throwing the journey that led to this that we have now, that's before us. And as I said, with all the questions that you've already put, I had thought that would give legal first to just clarify then the understanding as well as what they understand to be the real matter that is before the committee to resolve from a legal point of view before maybe members to come in, right? So that's basically that's honorable members. But of course, this is the first opportunity we had, like I would have stated, if there's a referral to the Speaker, we'll then consider it in the committee, because then that will not be in the purview of the Chair. But for the Chair to explain the process that he presided over, and there are records in that regard, would have not been a difficult question to deal with in that score, which is in line with the rules, that of acting in the best interest of the committee, especially on matters that the committee was seized with. And I think that's where we are, honorable members. So having explained this, then we are dealing with the referral, so that when we deal with the point by point on the referral, we had the benefit of knowing the background in that score. With that having been said, like I say, I advise that we can get legal in now, unless you want that you pose some questions, so that when legal gives their understanding of all the correspondence and so on, because like I said, the Speaker also relied on legal with regard to the 3 names. We ourselves had a process where we would also ask for legal advice in this regard. So we need to at least have that also from them. So if members want to ask questions now, they can indicate that, but I don't want to say I've made a ruling. I also don't want to hold if there's something that says, look, before anything, can I ask this question, Chair? So, Honorable Trego, welcome to the committee. We have confirmation, a member fully. You are recognized. You want to raise a point before we can move to legal. The Honorable Trego, unmute and proceed. Or is it me who's probably outside the meeting?
We can
No,
hear you,
Chair.
Chair.
No, Chair,
We can hear you.
no, Chair, we can hear you.
Yes, but as I said, there's a
Honorable
hand.
Trego was-
Okay,
Am
now
I-
it's unmuted.
Am
Yes.
I audible now, Chair?
Audible, Honorable Trego. You wanted
Yes,
to
Chair.
say something before I go to legal.
Yes, it's unfortunate that I'm experiencing network problems, Chair, but I think you are correct to say I agree with you. Let me put it that way, that let's have the legal people to advise first. We can, after they have given us advices, we can ask questions, but let them start. That's my view, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. So I thought you were probably calling it an order, so you agree. We can now get legal, as I said, just keep your notes so that when you come in, you can then just summarize to also help the committee to focus on those areas that need its response. Advocate Jenkins, I now recognize you. You're still on the platform.
Chairperson, Advocate Jenkins sent a note to say that he will reconnect because his computer is frozen. I'll just check with him. 1 second, Chair.
Okay, honorable members, we can just give 2
Chair,
2 minutes. Honorable Mlala.
yeah, Chair, in the meantime, we are waiting for Advocate Jenkins. I think I wanted to raise just 2 points from the 3 letters. The first one is that in your letter, you did make a concession that you did not consider the King's 5 report on good governance. And I'm just identifying those areas that I think might put us in a weaker position. That's the first thing that I needed to raise. The second thing is that in the correspondence between the Speaker and the President, there was no clear guidance in terms of the reserve list, whether the President in appointing can also consider the reserve list, which for me was a bit frustrating. So those 2 areas, I think if the legal can also input on them so that, because from where I'm sitting, I'm not a legal person, but I think these are 2 important areas that we need to consider in finalizing this matter, Chair. Thanks.
See, you are all trying to utilize the gap. And I'm not sure if legal person would hear the points you are making so that I don't have to say them myself. I see Honorable Kola Barnett is also attracted to this participation.
Well, Chair, as we're waiting for legal, I thought we could have something of a discussion. I'm interested in what the former speaker had to say, but I see that we did this entire process methodically, slowly. Any questions that we had or that were sent in by civil society, anyone else, we went straight to legal and they dealt with each and every issue as they were raised. There was no further issues raised. There were no issues raised when it went to the National Assembly, was 80 seat. There were no issues raised after we unanimously appointed that board in the National Assembly. And I see now it's only in January that suddenly there was reference to this other report, which no one at any stage made any reference to, and which is not relevant to the legislation that we deal with. So I find that quite an odd issue that was raised so far along in the process by the then minister. So I'm very interested to see if in any way our legal team backtracks on anything they advised us on, because really, and I thought, I must admit, I thought your letters in response was spot on. I thought the speaker's letter was spot on, saying simply, that's fine. We appointed the 12, remove the pool. That was only there in case this process dragged on so long, someone got a job, someone died, something happened, heaven forfend, to one of them. We had a pool, ranked pool, which we could fill in. But if that is unacceptable, I think the speaker did exactly the right thing and said, just remove those 3. They're not part of the initial 12. They're not part of the initial 12 rankings. So I think it was all responded to extremely well. And maybe if we just send the letter through without those 3, and say this is what was approved by the National Assembly, that may well resolve the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins is on.
Chairperson.
The Honorable Mlala.
Yes, I think
is Advocate Jenkins? Yeah.
Yes, Chair, I'm here. My apologies.
All right. I just want to give Honorable Mlala, then from there we're able to get to you. I'm sure you've heard the questions that
yeah.
Honorable Mlala, you can.
Yeah, I think I understand what Honorable is, but there's 2 issues that we can't ignore, even if we did not discuss the King's report, but we can't ignore the fact that we are making recommendations to the president. If president feels that you should have considered, or the minister in advising the president, you should have considered the King report is the basis of very good governance. We can't ignore that. And said the speaker responded correctly. I don't think it's correct. The second issue is that in the speaker's response, you can't ignore the 3 when the 3 are in a resolution of the House, because then there will be no legal basis for the president to ignore the 3, because they have been submitted to him as a resolution. Now, does it suggest that the speaker is changing the resolution of the House or what? So that's why I'm interested in hearing the legal, so that they speak to these 2 issues. Because if you say, don't consider the 3, why send the 3 to him? Because once you send it to the president, you can't send it and say it's a reserve. It means if any eventuality happened, president would have not ignored the 3. So what are you saying? So I'm saying let's get the Advocate Jenkins to talk to these 2 issues in the broader presentation that he does, so that we can then freely comment. Thanks, Chair.
I don't want to look like I've closed you out, Honorable. I take it that your hand is down because you've been covered. I will now give to Advocate Jenkins.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good evening again. My apologies, I went offline there for a while. Chairperson, I think the critical thing that one needs to understand is that the President, in responding to the resolution of the National Assembly, got legal advice, and I have not seen that legal advice. I have seen all the other letters. The legal advice that I think the President received, I'm sorry, it's a bit load shedding here, Chair. The legal advice that I think the president got was that Section 13 of the Broadcasting Act does not give any discretion to the president. Section 1, subsection 1 of Section 13 says that the president must appoint 12 non-executive members of the board on advice of the National Assembly. And that, in simple terms, requires from the National Assembly to send 12 persons to the president to appoint 12 persons, or if there's a vacancy, the number that's in the vacancy. Now, I think it's also, I think there's example in other legislation, but the reserve pool, as a practical and thought that it was, I think that is what the president used or advice that the president received to say, if there is a vacancy or anything does happen, the president has no authority in terms of Section 13 to look at a reserve pool. That cannot happen. The vacancy must go back to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly must fill that vacancy again. There's no provision for reserve pool in Section 13. So what the president, the discretion, it's not relevant for tonight's discussion, is that he has a discretion to designate one of the members of the board as a chairperson, and that's in terms of subsection 3, but that's not really relevant for tonight. What is really relevant, chairperson, is what I think the president said, that he feels that there's a legal problem with the resolution, and this is the other part of what the discussion on that court now, Chair, and that resolution of the House includes the 3 reserve pool members. So what the Speaker has done is to refer this letter back to the committee. I think what is required of the committee is to report back saying that the letter was considered, and the committee now recommends the 12 members or the 12 nominations or the 12 candidates without any reserve pool. It will go back to the House. The House will have to rescind its previous resolution to say this resolution replaces the resolution dated so many on page so many of the order paper. And then the resolution must contain only the 12 names, and that must go to the president. And that is what I read in the letter of the president, that specific paragraph where he says he needs a legally accurate record of what precisely the National Assembly has determined with respect to the persons they resolved to advise me to consider for appointment to the SABC board. In the first letter, if I can just reflect on that, Chairperson, the first letter the president sent, he does indicate that he knows that it's the National Assembly who must decide who sits on that board. He, in fact, there admits he has no discretion. So I don't think that the idea of a reserve pool is legally correct, and I do think that if it stands as it is, the president is placed in a position where he could then actually be put in a position where he acts unconstitutional. My advice at one stage, Chair, to the Speaker on this matter was that we can ignore the reserve pool because they can be cleanly distinguished. But and that has been told by the president. That is the response to the Speaker indicated that in her response to the president. And I think the president is not happy with this sort of solution. What's good for me, what's good for you. He wants the whole thing to be done correctly, as he said in his 3rd line in paragraph 5. He wants a legally accurate record of what precisely the NA has determined with respect to the persons appointed for the SABC board. So that is my advice on this matter, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Mlala. I think before I give Honorable Mlala, just hold a bit. I think before I give to members, we're going to ask again that the letter of the president be put up. I just want to get again clarity, because this advice has been given to the Speaker after the House would have resolved. And Honorable Kolabana did indicate we also traveled the road with the legal. And I'm making a reasonable assumption that even in the House, the legal people are meant to ensure that we adhere to the rules and everything else, including legal compliance. And this is the nature of discussions I'm referring to on the discussion with the content advisors and Advocate Jenkins. Maybe you may need to clarify the meeting. It's understood what the Act says about the president. Maybe help us as members to understand where the members need to recommend only 12 names, the section of the law that says that. So that as we resolve the problem, we do not create a doubted mind that probably both those that were advising legally and the members themselves didn't understand the act that they refer to, which is the Broadcasting Act. Because that's the response there. I accept, Honorable Mlala, that I would have stated the truth there, that we didn't make reference to King 4. It's just the truth. It may be weakness, but it had to be said. But put that aside, I'm just saying we used the Broadcasting Act as a point of reference. It will be important to state it to members. Where the reason compared to the other pieces of legislation where it's explicit is to really make the sense of why members came to that decision of catering for what could be any eventuality. Of course, accepting that maybe the use of the reserve pool could have done this. Honorable Mlala has spoken to the resolution. You've agreed with him that the House would need to change the resolution. Just one before I give to members, at least clarify this point so that we learn from it as members, where this is explicitly given, that the National Assembly shall recommend only 2 names and the President must appoint the I recognize you. You can just help clarify so that when members come in, they don't come back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. My reference is section 13 of the Act itself. Section 13, if one starts actually at section 12. Section 12 says that the board consists of 12 non-executive members. Now, section 13 then says that 12 non-executive members must be appointed by the NA. So what it does, in fact, the way I should say it is just plain and simple. The Act allows the NA only to appoint 12 non-executive members. They do not allow the National Assembly to appoint any more than 12 non-executive members. If the legislature, meaning Parliament, wanted the National Assembly to have power to appoint more than 12, it would have said so. That's the argument one reads usually in court decisions when this would come before a court on a review. Court will say it's plain and simple. There's 12 must be appointed. So there's no power given. And in any public institution, any organ of state, the president included, the speaker, the NA and the NCOP, they only have the powers given to them in terms of legislation. That's the principle of legality. So section 12 and 13 read together says that the NA can only appoint 12 members. Because if we read it together, it says that the non-executive members by number 12 must be given to the president on advice of the National Assembly. So one needs to read it together, Chairperson, in my respectful opinion. Thank you.
Honorable members, I will now give you an opportunity. I'm sure you do have the broadcasting before you. We'll come back to to this point, because we need to phrase the recommendation properly that goes back to the House. Can I now recognize members? I kept you, Honorable Mlala. I'm not sure if you're still on the platform. I will start with Honorable Machozi, Honorable Kolabana, Honorable Kubeka. I know Honorable Mlala may be connecting back. Those are the hands I have for now.
Oh, thanks, Chair. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. And also thank you for the information that we've received from legal point of view and maybe how we should proceed. But with the letter that we've received from the president, I hear what the legal side is, but now I'm not sure if maybe we should, what they are saying is that we should ignore what is written in concert with King 4 and saying that we did not maybe take into consideration that there were members who had served as executives in the SABC and so forth. So on that perspective, I think I had lowered my hand because Honorable Mulala had raised that issue. So going forward, let's say we forget about the 3, it's fine. That one, it's done with. Now we understand that we should have just recommended the 12 and then we let it at that. But now they raised another issue as well. And in the letter of minister, the former minister of communications, she also zooms in on the interviews that were held, that these were the concerns that were raised due to. And so I want to know, in terms of that, how then do we proceed as this committee? Do we proceed with the 12 names that we have recommended, and then they will see forth if maybe they do bring it back to us again? So I want us to eliminate getting another letter saying that we did not look at these concerns that they had raised before. So if I didn't quite get the name, Mr. who was telling us
Jenkins,
the legal side.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, Advocate Jenkins. So
Yes.
if we can get that on your side, that on the letter of the president and on the letter of the minister, how then do we move forward? That is all. But on these 3 other names, that one is clear, Chair. Thanks.
Honorable Kolabana.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think Advocate Jenkins has led us through the process very carefully, and I know how picky legal people are and have to be. So simply representing the letter through the speaker, detailing the 12 and putting that to the House again, I think would deal with that issue. We went through those interviews step by step. Any issues raised, we grilled the candidates, and everybody then was very happy with that final list. There were no queries, no questions, and everyone voted yes for that board. Now, this is now something else that's been brought up completely. We cannot now redo all the interviews, taking something else into consideration that is not in the legislation. It's just an impossibility, and Advocate Jenkins has led us through the process that needs to be gone through now. And I suggest that's exactly what we do. We've done this by the book, absolutely by the book, taking legal advice all the way along. And I think we should just stay like that without having to basically start the process again from scratch. Thank you.
The Honorable Kubeka.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to everyone who's in the meeting today. Chair, I think Honorable Majosi tried to cover me because I was just go with the legal side to say, is it safe? Is it, or you can just ignore it as it is? It's only that I just want to understand in order that I can have maybe some follow-up questions, Chair. If the advocate can respond to this one.
Honorable Mthembu, followed by Honorable Mlala. I hope he's back.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to you and all members of the committee. Chair, I just want to be clear about the three names. I'm still not clear. That are we saying the three names are now falling out of this suggestion that we made, that if any eventuality happened, we won't have a problem. We still have a pool. I'm trying to be clear on that one, so that I also want to check, because anything can happen on the 12th. What will then happen? What will we do if anything happened? If we don't have that pool that we were having earlier on? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mlala.
Yeah, Chairperson, I think maybe we don't understand things the same. Advocate Jenkins is advising us on what the law says, which we agree. He says the law says you can only appoint 12. Now, we must first acknowledge that it was wrong for us, for instance, to have also presented the reserve list to the president, which we must acknowledge, because now we are agreeing that the Act, it does not say anything except the 12. Now, if we did not want the president to consider the reserve, we shouldn't have sent it to him. That's the first one. That's my understanding of what, and Advocate Jenkins will correct me if I'm wrong. Now, the second point, which is what Comrade Kubega has asked. My understanding is that I may not be a lawyer, but I want to Jenkins also to comment. My understanding is we're expecting Advocate Jenkins to comment on the King's report, which is not the law. It's a principles of governance, good governance for that matter. It does not say just governance, it says the principles of good governance. Now, from where I'm sitting, we can't ignore those principles, because we're still going to go to the next discussion to say, okay, fine, we are going to send 12 names to the president. But the question may arise, can we still send the same 12 names despite the King's report on good governance? In terms of the law, we would have complied. But in terms of the principles of good governance, are we still in compliance? So that's why Honorable Kubega was right to ask that question, to say, okay, it's fine. Advocate Jenkins, do we expect you to also comment on the King's report? Or it's us who must comment on the King's report? Because despite the fact that you have advised us on the law says 12, fine, we agree. The law, Advocate Jenkins is not saying remove the 3 and put the 12. It's saying the law says you can appoint 12. Now we have appointed more than 12 because we have the reserve, which we send to the president. Now, why can't we come back and say, okay, fine, we have agreed that it's 12. Now, who is the 12 after the King's report? Because we can't ignore good governance and say we have worked, we have complied, because it says good governance. Now we can't then ignore the point that is raised by the minister as an advice to the president to say, how do you ignore good governance when, yes, you have complied with the law, you have put up 12 people, but what about these questions of good governance that are raised? What are we saying about them? So from where I'm sitting, I think Advocate Jenkins has done his part, in my view. What is left is for us to say, how do we move forward? And I'm worried that network is putting me in and out. But that would be my comment, Chair, that the first phase, we've passed it. Let's go to the second phase that is raised by Honorable Kubek. What are we saying about the King's report? Because in the correspondence that we have read, there's an acknowledgement that we only utilize the law, but the law is just prescribed on the number. It does not say the people that you appoint, are they complying with good governance? So I'm saying my proposal would be, yes, 12 is okay, but let's go back and say, how do you address this principle? What are the issues raised about the principles of good governance? Do we want to be seen as a committee that ignores principles of good governance? And if not, then let's engage on that principle so that the 12 that we submit to the National Assembly also has addressed that question. Thanks, Chair.
I would want us to give space to Advocate Jenkins to respond to the points made already, so that if there's a follow-up, it's done after he has made his point. Because I did say would still come back to the act, because I can't ignore that we had a meeting on the 2nd of March, and that was the discussion. So that it's understood why I wrote what I wrote in the letter after that meeting. Because I think it's important. We had legal people throughout the process, and would expect that you'd say, no, National Assembly can't make this. We may take this very light, but it's also about reliance going into the future on what gets to be an advice before a decision maker. So as I said, honorable members, let's just give a chance for the response to the matters you've raised, those that Advocate Jenkins would need to deal with, and those that the committee itself needs to deal with. I think it's matters we must engage ourselves on. Advocate Jenkins, I recognize you to respond to any of those that you want to respond.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I think the two issues that were raised now, the one of the reserve pool, I think we've dealt with that one. I think I must focus on the issue of the King report, Chairperson. The King report issue was raised in the letter, I think, from the Minister to the Speaker. And we were then also asked, our office was asked to look at it and to advise the Speaker on this, Chairperson. Now, I'm going to actually start with this submission, Chairperson, where I left off last time by saying the committee is required to appoint those 12 or to nominate the 12 members in terms of the Broadcasting Act. And the Broadcasting Act itself sets out what the members must be. Section 13, subsection 4 sets out what the members must be. The members of the board must be when viewed collectively. be persons who are suited to serve on the board by virtue of their qualifications, expertise, experience in the fields of broadcasting, policy and technology, broadcasting regulation, media law, etc. Chairperson, I mean, I can distribute that legal opinion to the committee should that be required. It's not a privileged piece of, it's not a privileged document. And then there are other requirements. You must represent a broad cross-section of the population, be persons who are committed to fairness, freedom of expression, etc., and etc. And these are the issues that the committee took into consideration when making these nominations, the 12 at least. I'm saying this because the committee had to do it, and that's what the committee did. So, Chairperson, as one can hear, there's nothing here that says the committee must consider the King report. Now, is that a problem? Because we have the King, the fourth King 4, as they call it, on good governance, and it is a document that is it sets a broad code of conduct for governance in companies. So it's not legislation. That's the first point I want to make. The committee appointed the 12, if I can focus on those, in terms of section 13, subsection 4. And then there's a role for the president to appoint them. And the King report does not feature in subsection 4. In fact, the committee can't follow subsection 4 and then say, well, okay, this is the correct board, but because of King, I'm not going to do that, because what is required of the committee in terms of the constitutional principle of legality is to look at legislation. Now, I'm not saying don't look at King, Chairperson, because King is a authoritative document. But when I go to King 4 now, Chairperson, that is the other part of our response on the question that was raised by the minister. There's specific sections in King 4 that the minister raised to speak about independence, Chairperson. That is, when we looked at King 4, that was independence of board members. Now, in terms of King 4, a board member, or let me start again. In terms of King 4, a board consists of executive and non-executive members. For instance, in the case of the SABC, the executive members will be those who fulfill executive roles within the SABC. We're thinking of the CEO, CFO, and so on. Well, members of ex officio members of the board. And as we know from a few years ago, where there was a whole court case around what do we follow? Do we follow the Articles of Association, the incorporation of the SABC or the Act? And the court said we follow the Act when we're dealing with the appointment and of the board members. So just analogously to that, Chairperson, when we look at what the committee had to do, we look at the Act. Now, when you look at King 4, in any event, those sections in King 4 raised by the minister, and I'm trying not to repeat what I just said, those sections pertain to committees of the board, because the board itself must appoint various committees, and those committees in terms of King 4 must be an equal or a fair representation between executive and non-executive members. And there's a remuneration committee, for instance, your social and ethical committee, which deals with various parts of governance in the SABC or in any company. Remember, we're talking about King here now, not about the SABC and the Broadcasting Act. So any company, any big company must have these committees, your remuneration committee, you have an audit committee, and they deal with various aspects of a governance of a committee. And these committees must be made up of equal representation, and some completely must be independent, others equal representation, independent and non-independent members that make up these committees. And in determining that, King 4 makes certain recommendations to say if someone has filled an executive role within 3 years, I think it was, and that person is now a member of the board, that member of the board's previous experience in the executive might count against them when they decide who is executive and who's non-executive and which board member must be in committee X or committee Y. So, Chair, I do not think the issue of independence and that you have served as an executive in the SABC within the last 3 years is a legally correct way to exclude a member at this point in time. And I'll deal with that last one in a moment, Chair, because King is not strong enough argument to do that. King, that's not the purpose of the King 4 report. King 4 report is trying to assess good governance, and to help select different members of the board to fit in different committees so that they fulfill the governance role in an ethical way. And Chair, I have a concern about the fact that these members have already been through a process where the House have adopted the report of the committee. So there are certainly legal expectations on some of these members, Chair, of course, not on the reserve book, because they were never meant to be appointed immediately in any event. But there are certain questions that can be raised, and I haven't studied the detail of the law here, but the National Assembly has adopted a resolution, at least with these 12 members. Unless there's a reason in law why one of those members cannot be appointed, I don't see how a committee or the National Assembly can just reverse the decision without a proper reason in law, Chairperson. And as I said, the King 4 doesn't provide that reason in law. So, Chair, this is just the legal aspect. It's getting away from that might be politics within this issue, but that is just the legal point how I see this thing, Chair. Thank you very much.
Those are the responses, honorable members. I think we now can get to the actual discussion. So the hands out invite will now have to take to the actual discussion. I'll start with you, Honorable Bambo.
Thank you, Chair.
That will be 1, followed by the Honorable Kolabang, followed by Honorable Machose. I'll take then the other hands thereafter. In that order.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think as the legal practitioner has just spoken now, he's given us a clear direction, but it didn't even need to get to this. There is obviously a political game that's being played here, and we can all see that Gunesanda Sambene, there is absolutely no reason why we're here. The legal practitioner is absolutely correct. We have adopted these names, and we know which names we wanted to be appointed. The 12 names are very clear to us. The 3 other names which have now caused the confusion, which is induced confusion by the president. Even the letter that the president has been writing, I mean, the letter that the president wrote, and the letters that have been exchanged between the minister and the speaker. There is absolutely no confusion who are the 12 names that must be appointed. Those 3 names, whether we are right or wrong, even if we are to consider it objectively, even if we're not the ones who had, participated in this process, anyone who was asked who are the 12 to be appointed would know who are the 12 that must be appointed. We went to Parliament and adopted those names. It's another tactic by the president to stall this process. The outcome of the 12 names are not favoring the president. We must be clear about that. And the president is trying to find a way to get rid of those names. There's absolutely no reason for any thinking person to argue why we are here now. This is abuse of power by the president, including that useless minister, if I may say so. Because we have made it clear, comrades. We have even the member here who says no, but what if we've done something wrong? There's nothing wrong we've done. We have taken the process as it is and as it is prescribed in law. The dirty game that is being played here, there is a legal obligation and a legal expectation from us, which we have fulfilled, and now it is in the hands of the president. The president must just do the right thing and stop manipulating the process by arguing that he is confused. There is absolutely nothing confusing. There is a separation. The 3 names, which we may say that now we shouldn't have put them there, I don't know, but that's one thing, that's something on the side. But if you ask the president, did we tell you which names we want? He can't say no. We went to Parliament and presented
12 names, of which we all agreed on. All of us here agreed on those names. So why are we here if it's not to restart and frustrate the process? If anything, this committee must take a decision now that these are the only names that we want. We even make a caveat to say, in case one of these members is unable to take up the post for whatever reason that happens in between. It's not something new, it has happened before. An indecisive, manipulative president uses that against the process, found a loophole to undermine this committee. This is undermining of the committee. In fact, if anything, it's the undermining of parliament. We're made to sit here now to discuss something that we're already done with. Why did it take so long? 5 months. We're into 5 months now. If there was ever an issue, it should have been raised then. The president just suddenly come back from holiday now. Is that what we're subjected to? You can't be part of the confusion, self-induced confusion between him, the president, between the president, the former minister, and the speaker. We are very clear on who must be there. We have not lied about that. We have not been confused about that. And we must not be thrown into that confusion. And we're not going to drown in that confusion. And the members here in this committee must not come up with some tactical lies about bringing up King. No. All of us, in fact, worse, some of the people who are raising this were participating fully in the process. Now there's some selective amnesia that is being used here. We were all there, Chairperson. All of us here, we were there, participated, went to Parliament, adopted the 12 names. So I suggest, Chairperson, that we write the letter and say, these are the 12 people, and you know these are the 12 people, appoint them, as in yesterday. South Africa can no longer wait for a boardless SABC, as it were. This is criminal of the president to be doing such a thing, including that minister. It's absolutely criminal who has been awarded into the presidency for participating in such criminality. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think we have had the legalities completely clarified by the advocate, who has led us through this process throughout. The King report does not relate to the appointment of the board. We went through an extensive process. We determined the board. We have voted in the House, unanimously agreeing to that board. So I agree that that letter must simply be written. These are the 12. This is what we voted on. This is what we agreed on. Kindly appoint them. It has been 5 months, and only now this is raised. No, I'm not happy with it, and I'm hearing interesting arguments being put forward, but I think the advocate has dealt with all of those. There are no arguments. The King's report does not relate to what we're doing. It relates to the establishment of committees within the board, which is not what we're doing. It's not our job. It's the chairperson of the board's job to do that. So I'm very happy that we just put the letter together, we sign off on it, and we send it in, tomorrow, and we okay it in the House. We have already all agreed on this board, and that pool of 3 was not there to simply chop and change and give alternatives. That was if something drastic happened and one of the 12 we had chosen and ranked could not take up their position. And if we wait another 5 months, maybe they'll all have different jobs and we'll have to start the process from scratch. But right now we have a board. Let us go ahead with the board and stop this shilly-shallying and questioning the decisions we have taken over months. It cannot be. We must just proceed and send the list without the 3 attached to the president. That's what we have determined, and that's what we have voted on. Thank you.
Honorable Machozi, then it will be followed by Honorable Malala.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me first say that we appreciate the explanation given by Advocate Jenkins on this matter, and then it solves all the issues that were raised from the presidency to the minister and so forth. I think now we are clear on what we have to do as the committee. If then it has to go back to the president to say these are the 12 names that we are recommending and that we have recommended before. Let's go ahead with that. And yeah, it's clear now, Chairperson. I mean, the public has been there. We have been transparent on everything that has been happening in this committee. So there's absolutely no way that now we will be asked about King 4. My reason why I wanted Advocate Jenkins to also say something on this issue of King 4, it was because it was written in the letter. So that is why I was raising it, that we must get clarity on it so that we don't just jump and do things and then they come back to us and say we did everything wrong, because now people will be taking legal actions if we do anything wrong, because it does not say that we should actually follow King 4. So I think we do have the clarity, Chairperson. I agree with the other members that now that we have the clarity, let us recommend the 12 and leave the 3 out, and then we proceed with the work of the committee. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Mlala. Can't hear you, Honorable Mlala.
Honorable Bambo,
I'm afraid I can't hear, Chair.
Try and get a better space, Honorable Mlala, because we do want to hear you. Connect. In the meantime, I'm checking if the members.
I'm back.
Chair?
I can't hear Honorable Mlala.
Yeah, but Chair, we can't wait
Yeah,
for
Chair,
long. You know,
I'm
this,
back.
Now, Honorable Bambo, we respected you to make your input. So it's unless Honorable Mlala says pass because he can't connect now, says on the platform.
Yes, Chair, I'm on the platform.
And we must hear the other views. We have heard you.
Yeah.
with respect, Chair, it was a procedural issue that if we can't find him, let someone else speak in the meantime. That was the reason, Chair, not to stop Mr.
Yes, I had said so, Honorable Bambo, but then Honorable Mlala, before you even made that intervention, that we'll now move to another member. Then Honorable Mlala came in to say, I'm on the platform, I'm back. So we should allow him to speak. Proceed, Honorable Mlala.
Yes, Chair. I wanted to raise that concern, but so that we all discuss. We don't use this platform to present our political views about the process. thought we are discussing the process, but now when you concern on that point. But the point I want to make, Chair, is that we appreciate Advocate Jenkins' advice, but this it does not mean the power to usurp presidents. Then we recommend.
I'm not hearing Chair. Is anyone else?
Mr. Mulala is gone, Chair.
I'm back, Chair.
Oh,
This network is there's sabotage, and I suspect Pambo is sabotaging me.
I think it's
No,
the
but
it's
it's
the
probably
it's,
far from where you are.
it's ESCOM, Chair. ANC
Probably
ESCOM.
far.
It's
Honorable Lala, make your point so that I go back to Honorable Tlayago's also raise the hand.
Yeah. Yes, Chair. I'm saying, you see, we should not in our view, there were concerns raised, and the advice that we got, I was in the meeting when we given the advice. The advice said on all the issues raised about individual contestants, there were about 4, I think, if I'm not wrong. The advice that were given at the time by Parliamentary Advice Committee was that these issues are raised, but it's for you, Parliament, to decide whether you're taking this or you ignoring them, the issues that were raised. And the advice was not explicit to say whether you can ignore all these issues that were raised about individual. Now, the president came back and possibly some of these issues were also raised with him, because I remember there was one NGO that said they will take their complaint further to the president. But it does not mean if we did not consider those concerns and the president considers them, he has no right to do that. He has the right to say, but these are the concerns that were heavy, and then refer that matter back to us. And it does not mean it's undermining Parliament. It's expressing his views about the recommendations that we made to him. So my view is, I don't agree with the latter 3 speakers, Chair, that this matter cannot, because in any way, if we say President ignore the 3 and appoint the 12, we still amending the resolution of the National Assembly. It does not say we are not amending. We're amending because the resolution had 3 names, reserved names. So we need to go back to that discussion and say, if we remove 3 names and say President appoint 12, what about the fact that those 3 names were sent to the president? So it means the National Assembly resolution is going to be amended. So those who are saying we can't change our decision, we've already changed the decision, because we are going to amend the National Assembly resolution, which we took. So we can't then short circuit the process and say, no, we just ignore the 3 because in any way we never said we must appoint the 3, but we sent the same name to president. So by implication, we're saying, President, you can still appoint the 3 in the eventuality. So I don't know if we are being technical here or we are being technical with words. But I think, Chair, my view is that we have already amended, and there's nothing wrong in us also considering those names that we feel issues have been raised, and we feel that we can still amend those names, because we feel that now that we have changed the resolution, it means by implication we have already started a new discussion. So I don't agree with those people that this matter is closed. From where I'm sitting, I think this matter is still open for discussion. And I want to enter that discussion, Chair, if you allow me, because we can't then amend another part that suits us and say the other part we can amend. So, Chair, that's my input, and I must make it clear that I don't support the 3 speakers in that regard.
Honorable members, I think I've listened to yourselves trying to open up, and I'm opening a video. Can't see me properly. It's still dark. Yeah, the Acacia Park. That's why I'm not interfering with you. I think, honorable members, there's a reality we must deal with. Honorable Kleko indicates that I had noted after Mlala. So I was already making a summary on the way forward so that I can focus on the real discussion now, which is based on the letter. We have got legal advice, so we need to say how we are moving forward. But before I do that, Honorable Kleko, you can speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. My take on the matter would be, Chairperson, the subcommittee did its job, but now instead of recommending 12 names to the president, we, as the subcommittee, we influenced Parliament to recommend 15 names to the president. We have now got the advice from the legal person. What I think is the right direction is for us to revisit whatever we recommended to Parliament, for Parliament to rescind that decision that it has taken as per our recommendation as the subcommittee, and have out of 15 names that were put there, we have 12 names, as it was explained to us by the legal person. And we are in agreement that we are taking the legal advice, that we opened a gap ourselves to recommend 15, even if we say it was a reserved list, but the 3 names were part of the recommendations that was made to the president. I think what we must do now is to have 12 names out of the 15 names that we have recommended. That's my view, Chair. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kolabana, they were raising a new issue.
Yes, Chair, I absolutely would like to comment further. I'm quite horrified at the way this discussion has been sidetracked. It's been made very clear to us that having accepted the list of 12 unanimously in the House, that there is a reasonable expectation by them. We cannot open ourselves up to legal challenge by simply willy-nilly changing that list. That list was handcrafted by us. It was scored, it was balanced according to gender, according to every metric. It was balanced, and that came up with the perfect board. Those three were only to be approached should someone die or not take up their position. That is not the case. A minister's reached in, who's no longer the minister, made a suggestion about a King report that has nothing to do with this decision, and now people are trying to use that as an excuse. No, we cannot use people who are on the bottom of the list to suddenly bounce out people on the list. It's absolutely inexplicable why this is being suggested. Chair, you did everything by the book, and I believe we should stay like that. We should go the course and simply remove the three and put that list again. We cannot go back to the drawing board, restart the process, and reorder everything. Those three were not at the end in order to give an option of an extra three to put wherever they like. That was not the case. They were simply there to fill in should something catastrophic happen to one of the members of the 12. They were not there to be interchangeable, and that is what's being suggested. I was there. I know what happened. I have extensive notes. It's all recorded. This is the team we agreed on. Please, we cannot change the process at this stage, nor is there any reason to do so. Thank you.
Honorable Machozi.
No, thanks, Chair. It's unfortunate that Advocate Jenkins is now left, but maybe I would
He is on.
have loved to hear from him, because I mean, we are just amending a report, removing the 3 and recommending the 12. If it's a need, as it was stated in one of the letters that, or in the letter that was written by the speaker, that maybe it went through all the processes and maybe legal did not see that it was not proper of us to add the 3 names. We just expected to have 12 names. If that is the case, then we can amend the report, take it to Parliament, agree on it, and then we move on. I just wanted to check with Advocate if maybe that is the process that we should take, or is the process of us removing the 3 names and submitting the 12 straight to the President is the process that we should take. So I just wanted to get that clarity, but all the other discussion, Chairperson, I don't think it's necessary, honestly. We have agreed on the 12 names. We know that these are the deliberated 12 names that we wanted to have in the list, and that is it. We've been transparent about this process from word go, from inception of it. So there is absolutely nothing wrong. It's only the 3 names that we had submitted, and we do that with all the other interviews of other entities. I mean, we've done that with ICASA and so forth. So maybe for the SABC it was wrong. Yes, we admit to that, but we are not disputing the names that are there. So honestly, this discussion, I just feel that it's out now. It's dead. I would just want to get an advice from the Advocate if maybe what process should we take now? Do we amend our report, take it to the President, or what is supposed to happen? Thanks.
Honorable.
Yeah, Chair. Yeah, Chairperson, I'm worried that all the speakers, as I say, we must change the. It means we have changed the report. the president was also raising about the 3, whether it's reserved or not. If it's sent to him, it means whatever eventuality that we're talking about, if that happened, it means president had to pick one from the 3. So from where I'm sitting, Chair, we have already amended the National Assembly resolution. And now, why are we refusing then to consider that, which is the 12 that we're sending? Because I think Comrade, sorry, I nearly said Comrade, Honorable Teko raised an important point that why in this instance, because we are amending part that we think suits us. We said, no, fine, the 3, we are not sending to the president. But we send him, and in his response, he questions the 3. So I think what we should be saying, Comrade, is that, sorry, I'm using the wrong weight, man. Honorable members, what we should be saying is that now that we have dealt with the first part of the 3, what are we saying about the 12? There are issues raised about some of the people in the 12. And the president also has the same right to raise the issues about them. So are we still want this process of the SABC to delay further? From where I'm sitting, there's names that we need to engage on in the 12. And if my colleagues are saying there's no need for us to proceed, then I would propose that we have a caucus as the ANC, because now I don't agree with this approach. I think we have already started amending our resolution, and we must open the discussion for another discussion of the 12. Because if we don't, then why are we willing to open it for the 3? I would agree with the proposal of Mem Kego, Honorable Kego, that if we take the whole 15, which is against the law, as the advisor said, but we can amend what suits us and say we are correct. We did everything right when we are amending our resolution. If we amend our resolution, it means we did not do everything right. And we must accept that. And we can then say everything is right, we are fine, but we are amending the 3. So we're being dishonest in that regard. So I would not agree to any process that has got dishonesty on the part. Maybe what I would propose, Chair, is that I'm going to propose that because that we have a caucus as the ANC into this matter, because I don't personally agree. Mamkego is proposing something, you're dismissing it. I'm proposing something, is dismissed. So my feeling is that let's have a caucus as the ANC and then come back, or we'll further engaged in the portfolio committee. But I don't agree with that. It must be recorded. I don't agree with this resolution that we take the old 12 and amend the other part. But when it comes to the other, you said, no, we can't amend. But the first part, we agree to amend. So that's my proposal, Chair.
Honorable members, I think as we proceed now, because members said they must be sent the letters. I just want to check with the committee support if you've done that, because I want us to refer now to the letter of the president, which is the reason we convened the meeting.
Even Chair,
No.
we did send the letters, Chair.
Yes, if you have sent the letters, so honorable members, before I even look at whether we should indeed suspend the proceedings as requested for members to be able to engage each other on this, we should start from the point that the president refers to 2 letters of the speaker. And this is where the question about the legal advice comes in. The first letter of the speaker is on the basis of what this subcommittee recommended to the committee and included the 3 names, and there was no legal issue raised. And for that reason, then the House adopted it. And that's the communication of the 20th. And when this matter is then questioned on the legal status of the 3, there's another letter that says, ignore the 3 and work on the basis of the 12. And this is on the strength again of legal advice from the same parliament. Fair to this, I'm saying on the 2nd of March. That's why I responded in that way. And as I said, Honorable Mlala accepted the witness in that I said the truth of what I've gone through as I chaired the committee. The content advisors who are both on the platform were part of that session. And the question was whether we were allowed to have our names or not. We started from composition because Section 12 doesn't talk about limitations to the National Assembly. It talks about the composition for non-executive and executive. We had an engagement on that issue. We then went on to the point about whether indeed the shortlist that we need to do and submit to the president, there's limitation that only 12 names. At that time, we couldn't find that. And if I were to use the words of Advocate Jenkins, indeed it's a compelling argument that it is not explicitly explained there as to what the National Assembly recommends. Hence the reference then to what is explicit in the ICASA Act in that regard. I don't want us to then make decisions that we continue to question them, that if it is so and so on the platform, we'll get this legal advice. You see, even other people that are complained about were made to understand, like Honorable Lala would have said, we are not a court of law, even on those that were raised as matters before courts. A court of law, we have to look at fit and proper persons, and we have to just apply our minds on this. But we must also hear the other side of the story. Hence, those candidates were asked these questions as they related to them. And the committee considers those answers in making its recommendations. And I don't want us to look like because there's a matter that's put on the table, we even want to disown that the 3 names came out of a discussion of this subcommittee endorsed by the committee and the National Assembly. And then I continue to say no legal issues were raised, because if they were raised at that point, there's no way that the committee would have defied a legal advice that says, no, by law, you can't do this. You have to discuss only 12 names. We would have reopened, we would have closed, depending on how we're advised, and then send a proper report in this regard. So because of all of these, we're then put in a situation where you've got 2 letters that are communicating a decision of the National Assembly, and the 2 letters are different. In that one says ignores the 3. So there's no longer any issue of eventuality. Then the other says, in the situation of any eventuality, these are the people that have been interviewed, vetted, and so on. So we shouldn't undermine that. As we stand, the decision of the House stands to have the 3 names, because this portfolio committee can alter the decision of the House and to make recommendations to the House. That at least is confirmed even by the advice we have received thus far, that you'll have to tamper with that so that it's aligned. Otherwise, on record in the House, there are 15 names, of which there's 12 and 3 so-called reserve pool. So this is the decision we have, that we are now advised to go 12. At that time, there was no issue that we go for more, no issue of reference to any limitations that are given to the committee. This includes some of the case laws that are referred to, which at this point have not been raised, where the president has been taken on this matter, which in the main was about the interference of the minister in the SOS case versus in the case of the SOS versus the president. And it talks to this appointment, paragraph 76 and 77 that people used. And that paragraph refers to the Constitution, which talks to the appointment of the judges in the High Court on how Parliament participates, given that it's a multi-party system where parties make recommendations and a pool is presented in that process. So that case makes reference to that. Now, I'm saying, therefore, that in a situation where you are not sure legally, it doesn't make you not to undermine the advice that you get. And that's the reason you get sometimes external legal opinion, is to get also somebody who's outside of the environment, because I will also not accept it as legal advice that the matters may be politics on the matter. That's not for legal. That's for the politicians, they can say that. Because you also want to trust the legal advice that you get, that it's also not influenced by the discussions we have. But it takes a point that helps Parliament to remain as an institution that can defend its decisions. So I'm just saying, honorable members, I do hear that there's this call for suspension and that members would want to discuss. But I would want us to also, as we do that, take into consideration, and this is a matter I would want to consult on, whether indeed, if the committee makes this requirement, these are matters for those of us who participate in the other committees like the inquiry and so on, that sometimes you do need to get an opinion, whether you call it second, just to be sure that the processes are secured and that we cannot be questioned later on. But there was legal advice that says there's no problem. And you now have legal advice that says there's a problem. And we should have not taken such a decision. It may not look important now, but going into the future, it's important, like I said, on what can you listen to as proper advice. But again, it's also about integrity of the members of this committee, that can they take an illegal decision knowingly that it is illegal. It's not a small matter. Not a small matter. Honorable Majosi raises this point that in other appointments, yes, we would have also recommended even more than one. In one case, we're filling the vacancy in the SABC. From the committee side of this, we recommended this, or given the time it has taken to make the appointment and so on. It may get communicated differently from the House, but I'm just saying from the committee, you would have had such situations, again, counting financial prudence and so on. And I do not think we want a situation like I would have had now, that in this case, if we submit 12 and the president is not happy with 1 or 2 or whatever number, then the president can then return this back. Can we restart the process of filling those vacancies? It will be the same process that it took for us to have the product that we have. Now we do have people, we have vetted them, we have interviewed them, know what they are capable of. So we need to strike that balance of knowing this part. And as I'm saying, I'm saying this so that we are able to maybe also take a bit of break, suspend the proceedings to also check. Remember, honorable members, there are also other members that we have kept on the side, that on the conclusion of discussions here, will then have to convene the committee thereafter. It's only fair to also sensitize, but also a possibility that we may need to look at the actual committee so that we're not pressurized with time here in not concluding properly, so that we know what is to put as a report of a subcommittee to the committee, because that's where the final recommendation will happen anyway. It's in that committee. That's the committee that makes a recommendation to the National Assembly. But our work here, it's important equally to contribute positively to the work of the committee. And that's why we are a subcommittee. So I'm just saying we need to consult on that part, so that once we have come to a conclusion, we are sure we can't get back to it. We could have asked these other questions and compare it accordingly. Honorable Nala, I'm not sure this is a legacy hand or a calling an order. I'm muted. So I'm not sure if you're calling an order or it's a legacy hand.
Chairperson.
Honorable Pambo, I didn't see your hand.
Chair, I think
I didn't see your hand, Honorable Pambo.
I don't understand, Chair.
You want to enter in the meantime? Like I'm saying, it seems Honorable Mlala, we don't hear each other, so I don't know if he's calling for an order.
Oh, okay. I'll wait for it.
Right. So I'll note you to speak. Honorable Mlala, so that I move to the next
Chair,
member.
I thought you were summarizing the discussion, and I've made a proposal because I don't want to be part of a resolution I don't agree to. I made a proposal that maybe we can adjourn for a few minutes and then we come back. Or alternatively, we can agree to further engage in the portfolio committee, because ultimately that's where the decision is going to be made. It was just mere the submission. So even in the portfolio committee, I'll still raise my objection. I would not regard this as a resolution of the meeting until all these issues that I'm raising are attended to. Thanks, Chair. So I'm saying we look at two options. Either we adjourn and then we do the consultation and then come back and then present our collective view, or we adjourn this meeting, we go to the next meeting and agree that we have not agreed on the way forward. We want the committee now to finalize and make a resolution. Thanks, Chair. So opening up that discussion again is not going to help. That's why I'm making that proposal, Chair.
Honorable Pambo, you were raising a point.
Yeah, I think it must be
Point of
recorded.
order.
It must be recorded, Chair, that Mr. Malala is extremely dishonest, and he knows he's being dishonest. For whatever reason, now he has changed. He knows the 12 names that are there are the names that we've agreed on. There's absolutely no need for what is being proposed now. It's a further frustration of the process. Clearly by the ANC now, he's come out very clearly. There is absolutely no need for a caucus. Caucus for what? That's why he's been put here. And he knew the agenda. And there were always these two options. We came here because we were told there was a confusion. We all agree on what those 12 or who those 12 names are. No one is confused here. None of us here in this platform is confused. And the bona fide of these 12 names has been tested through a process. We have taken through all these people, all these candidates.
The point of order.
Point of order, Chair.
Please hold on.
Chair, I think we have agreed that Honorable Pambo is still repeating what he said. I don't know.
You
Chair,
agreed with who?
Allowing him. I was very clear.
Yeah, who did you agree
Honorable
with?
Can I
Pambo,
finish?
Honorable Pambo, there's a point of order, and I've
What is the
granted
point of order, Chair? That's not a point of order. He's saying
No,
we have agreed.
But you're interrupting.
Honorable Pambo,
You're interrupting.
I have not recognized you. I've recognized Honorable. So
Yeah,
allow
Chair,
him to make the point.
The point of order is that Honorable Pambo is misrepresenting my views. That I'm dishonest and so on, and it's also insulting me. I'm saying I don't agree with the approach, and I've given reason. They have already amended the resolution. Now it can be that we amend the part that suits others and we don't amend the other. So Pambo is out of order because now he's talking about me, he's attacking me personally. He's not raising his views. Let him, we have had his views, Chair. Now, why do you still allow the discussion? Either we are adjourning or we are not adjourning.
Honorable Mlala, you've made the point. I'm sure Honorable Pambo would not be making such statements again without putting substantive that can prove the dishonesty and that can be discussed in that way. Let's agree, honorable members, that, as I said, there are a number of things we need to also consult on, including the committee that needs to follow. I don't think we had budgeted that to start at 8. By this time, there's still no movement going forward. I will, in this go, suspend the proceedings
Chairperson.
for 10 minutes,
Chairperson.
so that we also consult, including whether the committee,
Chair.
because we can't just say the meeting adjourns, go to the next meeting.
Chairperson.
There was no discussion. Honorable Pambo, what is the point?
Chair, I was still making a point, and the honorable member who just spoke now did not make a point of order. He made a point. He was raising in discomfort. No, Chairperson. I am substantial. I'm as to why I'm saying this is dishonest. I'm explaining why I'm saying he's dishonest and he cuts me. He's doing exactly what he's saying that I'm doing, which is not true.
Honorable Pambo, that's really casting aspersions on the member. You have not put any substantive motion.
But Chair, how
before
will you hear me
yeah,
if you don't
to
allow? How
deal
will
with
you
the
know if you don't hear
dishonest.
me? Chair,
You
if
know,
you don't hear me, if
no,
you
but you
cut me
know
in the
how
middle of my
you
submission,
know how to follow the
Chairperson,
rules
if
in
you don't
putting
stop,
up a substantive motion.
Chair, if you don't allow me to finish speaking, how are you going to know where I'm going?
No, Honorable Pambo, Honorable
You take a
Mulala
point
is
of
already
order. You've
raised a point of
recognized me,
order
Chair,
on
Chairperson,
you.
Chairperson.
You know,
You have recognized me, Chair. I'm speaking, I'm on the platform. A member comes in, says point of order. I keep quiet. The member speaks. You don't give a definitive ruling, but you override the process by saying now you're stopping the proceedings. You're giving us 10
no,
minutes.
Honorable Pambo.
I was still on the platform.
Honorable Pambo, let me address you then, so that you understand what I said. It would appear that you didn't hear me. Let me repeat. I stopped you because it was a point of order, and you agreed to obey the ruling that there is a point of order, and I must give Honorable Mulala an opportunity to raise the point of order. He makes the point that he has raised this before, that you are personally attacking the member, you are making these statements you are making, which are casting aspersions on the member without putting up any substantive motion, which would have followed the rules in that score. And I'm not sure when you say it's not a ruling, but I accept that it's a point of order. That's what I was saying to you, and that you must refrain from doing so. Then make your point without casting aspersions on the member.
Chairperson.
Can you hear me now?
Chairperson, I've been hearing you.
Okay, proceed then. Make your point without.
So, Chairperson, can I have you accept that you're out of order for wanting to close the session before you had allowed me to speak?
Honorable Pambo, the reason you're speaking.
I think if we're going to be procedural as you
allowed you. I'm allowing
you must be able to
speak.
accept.
That's why you're speaking. I'm allowing you to speak because
there is nothing we are amending here. Even in our submission, even in our adoption, even our resolution in Parliament, in the House, we resolved that the 12 names are the names that must go in. The other 3 names, there is no ambiguity about it. Even Mr. Mulala here, even in his submission, he accepts the 12 names. That we must interrogate these names is to subject them to another interview. These names have been interviewed. And their bona fide has been tested in the interviews. All of these names have been interviewed. What other process does he want now if it's not to frustrate the process, if it's not to frustrate this process that we're engaged in? This part which involves us has passed. We are being asked to clarify. We have clarified that the 12 are the ones that must go through. But to do this, it means that we're setting a precedence that later, even after we have resolved amongst ourselves, we're going to change the resolution on the basis that some people, after 5 months, you can't even say they've had a Damascus moment because 5 months, more than a quarter of a year, people come back and subject this subcommittee to go back on its way. We have agreed all of these names. None of these names were put on the list in our absentia. None of them. Objections to some of these names, we debated them. People wrote to the committee, we debated that, and we came up with these 12 names. What other process is there if it's not a thuggish process?
Honorable Pambo, I think you've made your point. Let's agree.
Thanks, Chair.
Let's agree that the resolution that makes us to have a discussion is because there are 15 names. There's 12 and 3 in the reserve pool. Not long ago, you were amongst those that said there is legal advice that said we should have not done so. And as we stand, there's a resolution that's standing. And for us to change that resolution, it is the discussion we're having. Whether we are having 50 names or we are going to have 12 names. So it can't be like it was clear cut that it's 12 names. We will not be discussing if there was that issue. I think let's also respect that indeed we all remember what we went through as a discussion. And in that discussion, there was never a legal matter that was raised. Hence the names were then submitted. If you were the person to consider the matter, if you have 2 letters before you, one says, we do have these names, the other says, ignore those names. And there's a resolution of a house. What would you rely on? And once you have confusion, you refer back to those that made that call to rectify. And that's what those points that are made in the letter are beginning to tell us. And I'm saying at least from what has been raised now, legal advice, that's what we had. And as I said, honorable members, let's agree, suspend the proceedings to also allow me to make the consultation on how best we deal with this matter. Because we can't ignore that we had legal people that helped us throughout the process, and this matter has not arisen. Secondly, we now have to understand that if we're changing, which is what begins to be the point here, it means we're changing. If once we remove anything, any name, whether it's the 3 or whatever, it's about change. So let's agree that it's about making a new recommendation to assembly, because we've already made the one that all of you say was unanimously agreed, which has got 12 and 3 names in a case of any eventuality. And I think it's Honorable Mutim who asked that question. What then happens in any eventuality? That has now been responded to. If we go the route of only recommending 12 names, if there's any problem, you'll have to go through the process again. And probably that's what we will also have to apply our minds on, whether we still have to go through such a process after what went through in that scope. So with that having been said, I'm not going to allow the other hands. I think let's take them after we take a break, suspend the proceedings for now to make the consultations. But this includes indeed whether we can really be fair to keep the other members on standby without any engagement in this regard, so as to understand that we may have to conclude here and discuss how we are taking the next step forward, because the subcommittee can make a resolution on this matter. The final resolution rests with the committee to make a recommendation to the House. The time is now 22:43. We started the date. As I say, it's only fair to make that consultation. We'll come back at 11. And let's suspend so that the other things you can raise them whilst to make the consultation. And in that consultation, I would also be looking at the legal people that advise the committee, both those at the time and now, so that we are able to look at it. Right? At 11, so can stay on the platform whilst do such consultation. Thank you.